His guys are pretty good.
And that show's been canceled 50 times,
right.
but
it's only been on the air for like 30 years.
Yeah.
All right, should be able to share the link here in a moment.
That show's been canceled.
All right. All right, sharing it right now. There's that. Ow.
I'm on board, apparently.
How about that?
Yeah.
Boom. All right, I am ready when you are.
You ready? All right.
I am.
The Brad and Britt cast, our final one before the election. What do you think? Should we even do one on Tuesday? Because anything we do is irrelevant.
Outdated,
yeah.
I'm fine with skipping Tuesday as well, and then trying to do something on Wednesday.
I just
fine to me.
Yeah. You get in touch with all the sponsors and stuff, and I'll let everybody know.
Sure.
See if we can bump their spots to another day. I think we can.
The more and more I think about it, the more I'm not really sure if we're going to have anything. I don't know if we're going to know the outcome of this thing on Wednesday.
That's okay. I don't mind that. It's just Tuesday is the day. Tuesday.
It's kind of frozen in time there.
Yeah.
I get your point about that.
So we'll take Tuesday off. We'll go 9 hours right now.
I'll tell you what got me over the weekend, and I've listened to it several times. The guys at WNYC produce a podcast called Trump Inc. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's very, very good. And with the help, they did something with the Radio Lab people, and they went to these experts and they war gamed several scenarios with various experts who have been involved in campaign lawyering, election laws, all that stuff. And they war gamed several scenarios about if Biden barely wins, if Trump barely wins, if there's an ambiguous outcome, and some of the stuff that they came up with. I'm not really buying into this, a lot of the scenarios and stuff that people have been throwing out there, but some of this stuff was fairly frightening, including Donald Trump invoking the Insurrection Act. I don't know if that's something that you've been paying attention to. And former Assistant Secretary of State Larry Wilkerson talks about how people don't like to talk about this, but he was in the streets of Detroit as a soldier in 1968 with a loaded machine gun. So we've done things like this before, and again, it's scaring me. It's called Trump Inc., and it's a fascinating podcast that people should listen to. I'll put a link to it up there. It's pretty scary to me anyway.
Well, there's a whole range of outcomes here. We know that, and that's the most radical.
Yeah,
of them all, but it's also not the most likely.
Right.
I don't think it's the most likely. Let me just put my prediction on the line right now, and the reason, the anecdotal, completely flippant, no proof reason. Ready? Here's why Joe Biden will win. And
okay.
I go back to what we've been talking about the last few weeks, and it's not an original thought, but the women in the suburbs, the mommies of the world, who are way more concerned about the health of their families, and I'm sure have driven the numbers concerning Trump's bad response to the coronavirus. Saturday night, had a total of two people come to our door for Halloween. 2. What that tells me is the mothers of America have spoken, and they have said no in a in a Trump-driven mentality, the kids would have been out in swarms. Nothing would have stopped them. Their crazy ass parents would have been driving them up and down the street or walking with them like they always do. But they thought better of it. They took the Dr. Fauci side versus the Donald Trump side. And that's a completely unscientific
anecdotal, but it's something.
Anecdotal, but Halloween was self-canceled. Okay.
Interesting.
It was not a government thing. There was nothing, right?
Right. Well,
you would know this.
No, there was jackbooted. Yeah, there was no jackbooted effort.
Right.
That used to be what we called that back in the day, right? Jackbooted efforts.
Right. So you can, not you, but people can talk about this idea, and I understand it, that, oh man, those Trump rallies, holy shit. He gets that. It is impressive. It shows the devotion, and they collect thousands and thousands of names, and they do the deep data dive and the exponential reach of the people who come to it's unbelievable. Biden is going to be shocked. The world will be shocked again.
It's the shy Trump voters. Remember the shy Trump voters?
Donald Trump, the shy Trump voters.
You've been hearing that about for about, what, a month now or more?
And guess what? Have you ever met a shy Trump voter?
Never.
Are there any left?
Never. I'm related to them. Never.
If they were shy 4 years ago, I think they got over their shyness. And if there are shy voters these days, it's Biden voters, because they might find themselves, on a bus somewhere with a bunch of thugs in trucks trying to run them off the road just for doing that.
So it's the two different.
There you go.
It's the two different camps. It's like either you have huge rallies where people are in boats trying to kill themselves and, nearly dying with massive flags the size of King Kong's head, or they're just little cowering, shrinking violence in the corner. That's apparently the two faces of the Trump voter. They either want to get in your face and run you off the road in Texas, or they just want to be in the corner and they're just not telling anyone.
Right. There's nothing in between.
Which is it? Which is it? Are these people so proud and so supportive of their guy, or are they just pussies, just waiting just to shiver over in the corner in the fetal position? Well, I don't understand.
Now, my dream scenario, my fantasy scenario, is that the Biden campaign got it right, and Kamala Harris going to Texas was the sign that they knew it was within reach. And it happened. And in the suburbs of Dallas and in Harris County, which is Houston,
right,
where that's right, 3 different levels of Republican judges told the Republicans to fuck off and stop trying to knock out the 120,000 drive-in votes.
Yeah, drive-through voting,
Drive-through voting, which is a great idea.
And it's happened in the past. Yeah, it's happened. Yeah, they've done it before.
Now, so if Donald Trump gets support from the federal government, can't do anything right Republicans, the Ronald Reagan was right. Government's never the solution. It's the problem. If the Republicans back up Donald Trump in his attempt to stage a coup and truly overturn the results of the election, or as he likes to say it, the duly elected president, Joe Biden, if they do it, there will be a lot of trouble, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to get a cleaner result than everybody thinks. When everybody says it's going to go one way, then we're usually surprised the other way. And I
would be happy if that was the case. I would happily say that, I went off the deep end on some of these scenarios and I shouldn't have done that. If it's 400 or 380 electoral votes for Joe Biden, or if he captures 8 to 10%, that margin of victory over Donald Trump, I would happily go, I was wrong. I got the deep end. I'll be happy to say that.
I do think we do have to be careful and absolutely not respond at all to the national number at 8 or 10%.
I agree.
Because there's just too much New York and California and Illinois in that number.
I agree.
Irrelevant numbers that mean nothing. Of course, as we get to the day where we stop, it isn't election day, it's the end of election day. First of all, they need to start calling it that. But the idea that we are conducting a national election every 4 years, and there are only anywhere from 8 to 10 states that matter, and there are only 8 to 10 states that the candidates travel to, is so sick. It's so perverted.
It's true.
It's so wrong.
As opposed to just relying on the popular vote the way they do the rest of the world. Yeah.
And it looks dumber and dumber and dumber all the time. Yeah. And you know why it probably looks dumb to the rest of the world, besides the fact that the rest of the world isn't as stupid as we are.
Seems that way.
When people come to the United States to visit, the number one tourist destination states are probably Florida and California,
sure,
and New York City, not necessarily in that order, but that's where they first come to.
Sure.
So they're probably keyed into the fact that when they come to New York, the people in New York have no say in who the president is, and when they go to California, the people in California really have, in effect, no say.
Mm-hmm.
But people in Pennsylvania, my God, they are important.
And Ohio.
They are so important.
And Michigan and Wisconsin and North Carolina.
Oh, my God. These are the important American. I mean, you cannot, 12 ways from Sunday, justify this. You just cannot. And I wish we had a way to come back 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And let's hope that the country doesn't dissolve over the next week and it's still around and we're still holding elections. Will we have 300 and 400 years worth of electoral college style national elections in this country? Will it go on forever? Is anybody still using the Magna Carta as their? No, they don't. What is that? It is so crazy. And this whole concept of originalism is such bullshit.
Well, I'll go one step.
It is an empty, thoughtless. It is an intellectually vapid idea. It just is.
I'll go one step further with you. When they started gaming out these scenarios, and you're hearing a lot, I guess, about not only the election of 2000, but that election of 1876, which is one of the most contested elections in American history. The rules of the compromise that were passed after that. And if there is some sort of tie, if both parties are not able to reach 270, and it goes to the Senate, the rules as I read them and as they gamed them out on that podcast were that the vice president gavels the joint session into session, and then it says, and the votes shall be counted. The Constitution never says who is supposed to count the votes. It never says if the House of Representatives or the Senate is supposed to count the votes. And there are constitutional scholars that have looked into this. So you have the scenario where the House of Representatives could say, we're going to take the electors from this state, and they may have issued 2 sets of electors, which has happened. And then the Senate may say, wait a minute, we're going to take this set of electors, and they don't agree on the outcome of the election. That's in the Constitution. That's the ambiguity that you're talking about here. God did not come down from the mount and hand us this Constitution. There are flaws within it, and that is one of them. It does not say who is to count the votes in that compromise. I think it was the Election Act of 1877 or something of that nature. It doesn't say. So if that happens, and God forbid that it does, I hope that it does not, there's a lot of ambiguity in there. They say it, we tend to have so much faith in laws, and we do, and we should. We are a nation of laws, but those things don't exist in a vacuum without any kind of political preference or anything associated with them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not just that. You said a nation of laws. These are not laws.
Yeah.
They're largely based on customs and norms. And Donald Trump does not abide by customs and norms.
That's correct.
He spent every day as president pleasing those people you see at rallies by proving that he's not a politician when, of course, he is a politician. He's a dreadful politician. He's an ignorant politician. He's a know-nothing politician. But those people who you see at the rallies, they're lapping it up. I mean, I get that. But I hope we are 24 hours or 96 hours from a true come to Jesus moment for this country, where people have to start peeling off and saying, let's march together. Let's put this country back together. And the Trump News Network will debut next Thursday on Cablevision. I understand. I get all that. I know he's not going away. I know that. But
formerly known as One America. But yes, I'd be more than happy to have him confined to channel 963 or whatever it is on cable.
Yeah.
Versus but you also do wonder. And this has to be said, it's not just about the people. It's if he does try to invoke the Insurrection Act, will there be a Republican politician or more than one, a group of who said, no, game over. We're not going along with this. This is illegal. And what role is the military to play? And will some general or a group of generals say, no, we're walking away. We will not do this to the American people. We will not. I mean, all of that is a frightening scenarios. But again, these are things that have happened in this country before. Some of the stuff is without precedent. Some is with precedent. We just have to be very careful. And I think you could drive yourself nuts going to this projection, this poll over the next 24 to 48 hours. You're going to see a lot of that stuff. And you could drive yourself absolutely apeshit looking at all this stuff and trying to divine. I gamed it out. I put a thing on the Brad and Britt page on Facebook and on our Twitter account, and I just looked through it, and I've kind of gamed out as you would picking football games or something like that. And I've got Biden at 335 electoral votes and Trump at 203. And I gave Trump Ohio, and I gave him North Carolina, but most of the other swing states, including Florida, I gave to Biden. So that's what I've got going. I just wanted to see how close I was to it being real. I would be very happy to have, Joe Biden take Texas as well. I think that would be fantastic. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. Georgia looks to me safer than Texas does, and Arizona looks to me to be, close as well. So we're just going to have to see what happens. But yeah, it could be a pretty wild time in American history here.
Well, what are we to make of the turnout in Texas? The completely over the top, more votes early than the total amount of votes 4 years ago. As people smarter than me have said, there's something going on in Texas. And Ted Cruz seemed to be very nervous last week in a couple of actual interviews.
Yeah, he did.
And this is a guy who only won his race over Beto O'Rourke, not really the most dynamic candidate ever.
Right.
An average Democratic candidate, and he only beat him by 3. Yeah. And as you know, in the succeeding couple of years, certainly going back 4 years, because the Texas race was in 2018. So you have demographic changes in the last 2 years, then add on another 2 years going back to 2016. And in Texas, they're moving fast. And I think the number one incoming state for people to move to Texas is from, guess where? California.
There you go.
Well, what do they grow in California besides almonds and walnuts and garlic? They grow liberals.
Yeah,
okay.
Crazy.
And liberals move to Plano, Texas.
Yeah.
Liberals move to those. And so that's what we're talking about here. So
I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I always try to think
I don't know.
The result is the thing that matters, obviously, and getting Donald Trump out of office and electing Joe Biden as president is the most important thing. I always try to think if it doesn't happen, there's a lot of positive takeaways. It does appear that young people in larger numbers than at least was previously had in the past several elections, it looks like they are completely involved and very interested in the system and voting. It appears that a lot more people are aware of the efforts to try to disenfranchise Black folks from voting and Hispanic folks from voting and all sorts of minorities. It does seem like a lot of people are more in tune with that and are saying, hey, that's not cool. We're going to do something about
it. I think you're right. I also believe that what happened in the election of 2018, a true blue wave across the country and a true blue wave in a lot of state houses. North Carolina suddenly didn't have a legislature that could veto everything coming from Roy Cooper. You know, they had a veto-proof majority there. They don't anymore. So this state has been trending more purpley and bluey since the 2010 coup during the rejection of Obamacare across the country. The Tea Party year.
The Tea Party, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Hold on to that thought.
But I think, to expand on what your point was a moment ago, that if Trump wins, but a whole bunch of state legislatures flip from red to blue,
it's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Because this is a census year. Don't forget that.
Right. And if the Democrats pick up another 10 to 15 seats in the House, that's a bigger deal.
It is.
And obviously the Senate is as important as the presidency. This is my bizarro scenario. The bizarro scenario is that Trump somehow wins and the Senate flips to Democrats.
Right.
So, and some folks say, well, that's the best combination of all. A divided government. Nothing will ever get done. Nothing bad will ever be.
Republicans used to love that. Republicans used to love that scenario.
Right. Now, I don't think that that's going to happen, but that's another possibility. There's 100 different ways you could see this all turning out, but I don't see anything but legislatures getting bluer across the country, whether that's paired up with a presidential win and or a Senate flip. That's the big ifs that are out there. But I don't know. I'll tell you about my Saturday here. Saturday was the last day of early voting,
right,
here in North Carolina, and I was at the Greensboro Coliseum from 8 until noon, and I did this 5 times, 5 3-4 hour shifts. So I was out there, a decent amount of time. And you really do get a feel for how elections, even if you're not inside, when you see people coming in, you see the levels of determination, you see how committed people are.
Right.
And I don't want to criticize everybody who decided they wanted to wait until election day itself to vote. But just between you and me, Britt, they're idiots. No, really, honest to God, you know, even here where they try to restrict the vote, where they wouldn't do Sundays, no souls to the polls, none of that shit. Even with that, you know, there were more than 2 weeks to early vote, and I think what it is some people believe that it's like a different ballot. It's not the same as voting on election day. There's something more sacred about voting election day.
You know what you're saying? It hits home. I think you're right about some of that for sure.
I've always voted on election day. I'm not going to change. And it's really sad.
It is,
because it's just, you know, all the people that I saw walk in and walk out, most of them within 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes there were lines, but not very long. And they did a good job. And by the way, where I was at the Greensboro Coliseum, an early voting site, for the following reason, because the Greensboro Swarm, who are the farm team of the Charlotte Hornets of the NBA.
I think it's the G League is what they're calling it now.
Right. So anything associated with the NBA, whether it's in the city, Charlotte itself, or Los Angeles or Chicago, their arenas were set up to be early voting sites. And even the farm teams did the same thing. So had the basketball team not existed, I guarantee you there would have been no early voting site at the Greensboro Coliseum,
not
because
there.
It's very close to a lot of black neighborhoods.
It certainly is.
I can guarantee you that Republicans, if they had their choice,
they'd be screaming about it.
It would have never happened, and I don't think it ever happened before this. Right? That was never an early voting site.
Now, I said this a moment ago, but do you think this is resonating around America to a lot of people, that it's clearly the Republicans who are trying to have fewer people vote? I mean, because that's writ large. That's not even ambiguous or controversial right now. I mean, I hope that most people are able to see very clearly that the Republicans are trying to not have a lot of people vote.
I think that's not a secret.
Yeah,
I think we know. on Saturday, everybody was in a good mood, and at all 5 sites that I was at over the 2 weeks, there was never a Trump person doing what I was doing, which was handing out the little blue voting cards. So they chose a different path. Now, on Saturday, a guy named Mike comes sauntering up, who looked exactly like he wanted to enter the Tom Tillis look-alike contest. Standard 62-year-old white guy, white haircut,
Right.
short hair, nice guy, and he's holding a Trump sign about 2 feet long, a foot high.
Right.
And he had a couple little pamphlets in his hand. And I started talking to Mike. And Mike was a pretty pleasant guy. Mike grew up in Michigan, and he had just been laid off from his job a few days ago.
Oh, Jesus.
But don't think for 1 second that
no,
that's
he's not correlating that to his man.
No. And Mike said, all this material that I brought with me has nothing to do with the Republican Party, because they're not doing any of this where we are. They've given up.
So he's doing this on his own. He's a lone angel.
He's just a lone angel guy. And he said the Republican Party in Guilford County basically does not exist. They've given up.
Oh, that's odd.
So he was mad, but he was still trying to engage people as they walked in, which was kind of a fool's errand, because I'd say 80 to 85% of the people coming in were Democrats, but there were certainly some Trump people.
It's so odd.
And Mike was never wearing a mask.
Yeah, of course.
And when you're in these situations now, social situations, where someone is a Trumper and they're not wearing a mask, you have a decision to make. You can confront them, you can insult them, you can ask why, or you can ignore it. Well, I didn't even have to ask why. He wanted to volunteer the fact that, number one, he's not worried about getting coronavirus.
Oh, yeah.
And once it goes there, there's nothing to say. And there's nothing to say beyond the fact that you've been fucking alive for the last 8 months, and you don't realize that wearing a mask is not specifically about protecting you from getting the coronavirus. It's a decent human thing to do for everyone else around you. If you still have to have that discussion, okay. But Mike's still a nice guy, and I talked to him. Next thing we know, there's a whole group of young folks. These are black folks who have clipboards, and they are trying to grab people as they come out to try to get them to call other people. Okay. They're just canvassing. They're just canvassing.
Yeah, I like that.
And one of these people is really tall. And next thing I know, we're talking to him. His name is Al. And we're having a 3-way conversation, but mostly it's between Mike, the white guy, and Al, the black guy. It turns out that Al graduated from Elon Law School.
Wow.
Within the last year. He hasn't taken the bar yet. And Al has an 11-year-old son. And the subject comes up of police shootings, police violence between these two guys. I'm kind of the bystander there.
Right.
And Al says it's been very difficult for him to explain what's going on with George Floyd and other things of that sort. And in particular, the Tamir Rice story. Tamir Rice was the 12-year-old black kid in Cleveland,
right,
who was just standing there, but he had a toy gun, and the cops apparently got a call, right? And they motored up, and no questions, just bang. They just killed Tamir Rice.
Right.
And Mike, the Tom Tillis looking Republican Trumper without a mask.
Standard North Carolina male haircut number 2.
Yeah. Mike could not and would not put himself in the shoes of black people in not being able to process that as anything but an illegitimate act by the police. Mike's answer was, that was just one time. Again, I don't know how we bridge the gap. Okay.
Well, that's willful.
So by the way, I did try to get in there. And make these points, but it didn't matter. He kept going back. It was just one time.
Well, Breonna Taylor was just one time. George Floyd was just one time. All of it happened. Right. Just one time has happened, way more times than I would care to even count.
The next thing it's what about the 20 people in Chicago that got shot over the weekend? It's the same.
But I would have thought your buddy Mike, I thought his tact would have been, well, you got to do what the police tell you to do. You got to back the police.
He didn't even go there.
He's not even doing that.
No, the kid was 12. Come on.
So that was a very informative conversation.
Very informative. And Al runs a barbecue business.
Holy cow!
Before he gets his bar certification,
and he offered Mike a job. So that was
he's going to be passing out barbecue at the election site tomorrow. You can't be real close by. You have to be a certain number of feet away.
The New York Times article where they decided to hold in Harris County, I think it was in Pasadena and some of the outlying areas in Harris County, they opened the polls. I think this was last
24/7.
Yes, it was 7 a.m. on a Thursday until 7 p.m. on a Friday, and at one of them, one of the politicians had paid for free tacos. He was just giving a taco truck was there, and he was passing out tacos to people. I thought that is fantastic because, I guess it's not really a mystery. I work nights now, and a lot of people work nights. The world does not stop at 5 o'clock every day, and there are people. Some of them have been deemed essential during this COVID pandemic who work at midnight and 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night. And, it's not easy for them to vote from 8 to. I understand in North Carolina, we've done pretty well with, extending the voting hours and stuff, even though, as you say, they pared it down. So I thought that was a great idea.
There are a lot of days to vote, early vote, but it's very pernicious.
It is.
Because, for instance, on the last day, which was Saturday, early voting was from 8 until 3. Yeah. Why 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock. I don't know.
Why 3 o'clock?
Well, the kids get out of school at 3 on Saturday. You got to go pick them up. So nobody would be. Right. I mean, it's again. We do it that way because we've always done it that way.
No. We didn't always do it that way. We do it that way because Republicans.
Yeah. They want to cut it off.
Set the times in most of these localities.
Right.
That's what's going on.
And there was no reason not to do it on November the 1st. There was no reason on that that Sunday not to have souls to the polls and all the stuff that had happened before, because it had happened before and they'd done it. I want to go back to what you talked about, and it does relate to 2010 and the Tea Party, because you saw. This is now viral video that's been on all the networks and everything. The situation in Graham, North Carolina, which is about a 20-minute drive from where I'm speaking right now, where there were lawful protesters who were properly permitted, who were tear gassed. I've heard differing things. I know the Alamance County Sheriff's Department was involved. I think also the Graham Police Department was involved. You've seen the video now. The excuse being given by some is that these officers, the people who were defending the officers' actions, were that they shot the tear gas at the ground.
Ugh.
If the ground is now at kneecap level on a 6-foot man, that's what they did. You may know this. It does not matter if you shoot or deploy tear gas at the ground. It goes through the air, Brad. I don't know if you've heard this, much like a virus, and gets in your nose, your mouth, and into your eyes. So while some of George Floyd's family were on stage at this event with the mayor of Burlington, this tear gas was deployed, I might add, within a few hundred feet of an early voting station in Graham, North Carolina. And this very much looks to me to be the video you could match up with some of the Bull Connor footage of the dogs and the hoses being unleashed on black folks.
Wasn't there a woman in a wheelchair?
There was a woman in a wheelchair. There were children that were involved. And Josh Stein, who is the attorney general for this state, was immediately on it. I saw his tweets on Saturday. He checked on the early voting place. He said he has called Terry Johnson, who is the racist Alamance County sheriff, and tried to get in touch with him. Terry would not return his calls as of then. I don't know if they've made contact since then. My prediction, at least for North Carolina folks who watch politics here, Josh Stein is at least going to run for governor in 4 years. And he probably has a really good chance of winning. The guy who is the governor now in this state, that was his job. He was the attorney general before then. The guy a couple of guys ago, the last governor to be reelected in this state, Mike Easley, that was his job as well. He was the attorney general for the state of North Carolina. Josh Stein will start a war. There's a fantastic Slate article about the racist past of Terry Johnson and what he's done in Alamance County. It's not even, again, controversial or ambiguous, the racism that he's thrown down in that county. Josh Stein versus Terry Johnson, he will ride that rivalry into the governor's mansion in 2024. He will be on his ass doing stuff because this has to be stopped. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay. Aside from the political aspirations of Josh Stein, which you have nicely chronicled as him being basically a cynical fuck, and he doesn't really believe in what he just did over the weekend, which is not true.
That's absolutely. He believes in what he's doing over the weekend, and he's doing the right thing, and this is the right fight to pick. That's not at all the way that I would quantify what I just said.
Well, I'm just causing trouble here. But what does it mean for the next 36 hours? I'm interested in, and I think all these kind of things, this is the critical mass we've been talking about. You cannot keep your foot on a man's neck for any amount of time before he rises up unless you kill him. Yeah. And this feels like the John Lewis moment coming to life. Think of this. We lost John Lewis, 3 months ago?
Right.
Or so. And John Lewis's entire life, his whole political career, owes to the moment that he stood up in Alabama in 1965. It was, I think,
right,
and got the tar beaten out of him on that bridge, Edmund Pettus Bridge. Which have they changed the name of that damn thing yet? That's worse than the Washington Redskins. Times 50 that bridge is named after that racist piece of crap. That guy.
No, you're right. Yeah. No, you're not. And I would. Yeah, go ahead with your point.
But anyway, I mean, this is what John Lewis talked about. This is what John Lewis lived, and we hope that the turnout that we've seen so far, and what appears to be a record turnout when we look back in a couple days, overall, is going to be people saying, you can try all you want. You can close down polling places all over this country. There have been over 1,000 closed down since John Roberts and the Supreme Court about 10 years ago said that whole voting rights thing, that whole thing where we monitor certain states, we don't need to do that anymore because there is no more racism. It's all gone. That it's just not going to stop people. And I think that hopefully we can look back even in a few days and say, look, the moment Donald Trump came down the escalator, then the moment that he won the election, something started to churn, and it reared its head a couple of times very visibly. It reared its head in the big Women with the Pussy Hat March the day after the inauguration,
who were mocked and who were who were marginalized. Absolutely.
It reared its head in 2018 when there was a blue wave election that nobody saw coming.
In the wake of the Kavanaugh hearings, which again woke up a lot of women.
Right, and none of those women are switching back to Trump.
You're damn right.
Okay, so unless there's just a lot of Dukes of Hazzard guys that have been out in the weeds there waiting to be contacted, and they're all going to come out in a swarm on Tuesday.
Forget it.
And lift Donald Trump to victory over every other subgroup you can name: old people, white suburban women, young people, the kids in Florida, who, if Florida wins, it will be the result, I think, of the Parkland kids.
This is the first election the Parkland kids can vote in, right?
The kids who had their classmates gunned down.
Right, and David Hogg, who was mocked and marginalized and called everything but a child of God by by the Fox News crowd.
And so the poetic justice of the fact that Donald Trump trampled and bullied every group you can name. And by the way, it's never too late for anybody to produce a commercial today or even for this evening or the Lincoln Project. They can crank one out in 20 minutes if they need to.
And they're doing great work.
I can't believe there isn't a commercial from the Biden campaign or a super PAC right now saying, why does Donald Trump want to stop military votes from being counted? Why does he hate the military so much? Because a lot of those votes are the ones that come in 2, 3, 4 days later in a lot of states.
I've seen Pete Buttigieg make this point on a lot of stuff. You're right. There should be an ad out there, and God bless Mayor Pete, because when he goes on these shows, he is so eloquent and he does not let him off the mat. And he makes the absolute point that why is Donald Trump trying to screw veterans? I don't understand. Why does he not want their votes to count? Yeah, I agree with you, and I hope maybe there will be some ads that come out because of that. But I want to go back to that incident in Graham, North Carolina, and about those people being pepper sprayed outrageously within a few feet of George Floyd's family. Can you even imagine in 2010 had there been the Tea Party rally, and just stop with the bullshit narrative that the Tea Party, they were well behaved and they picked up their own garbage and all. Can you imagine that if some local municipality, if there had been video of them being pepper sprayed, can you imagine how the servers at the Drudge Report would have you would have been able to see them from space. Fox News would have set their hair on fire if those people had been pepper sprayed 10 years ago.
Right. Well, of course. I mean, if the other side had done it game, we can play it all day. And clearly the bus incident in Texas.
Holy shit.
If a Donald Trump bus had been surrounded by a bunch of yahoos in trucks that were all Biden people trying to push a Trump bus off the highway, all thinking that they're little Dale Earnhardts.
Exactly.
Is the reference now to Dale Earnhardt starting to get aged?
No, but
what do you think?
Based on, again, these people living in the past in an America that never existed, yeah, you might as well go with that's like a current reference. He's been dead for 20 years. So, yeah, you might as well go ahead with that.
That's my point. But
there you go.
Yeah, so all of these things, they come and go. And what's the most common thing that's been said for all these 4 years? Well, this outrage is designed to distract you from the last outrage, right? Blah, blah, blah. Here's a tweet, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, that's true. But now there's no more time. There's no more time for new distractions. Hunter Biden's laptop just couldn't get it done for them.
There's no James Comey that's going to come out with a press conference.
Right.
There's nothing to save his fat ass. No.
Nothing is going to be announced tonight that's going to change the outcome of this election, especially since 2/3 of the vote is already in the can. It's not going to change.
And he's going, and I'm looking right now at the Twitter feed, and he's going ape shit. You have to be very careful over the next 24 to 48 hours. You're going to see a lot of misinformation and disinformation. It's not just going to come from Donald Trump and the Republicans. The Russians might get involved. The Chinese might get involved. You have to be very careful about all that stuff and driving yourself crazy about looking at social media, taking stuff as gospel. There's going to be a lot of that stuff for sure.
So here's another reason why you should have some degree of confidence, not arrogance, not it's in the bag, none of that. If Donald Trump had internal polling that said everything it's all bullshit. You're going to do it this time. You're going to collect not only the votes you got in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania the last time. You're going to get all the Jill Stein votes. You're going to get all the third-party votes. It's going to add up to a huge, huge number. We found he would not be behaving this way. He would not be threatening the integrity of the election before the election is even held, in terms of the counting. He would not announce the most abhorrent thing, which again, you talk about someone that should be locked up. This idea that he's pulled out of his ass, which it's not an idea. It's not an idea. It's a concept that is so off base and so stupid as always, but that's what Trump does. He does things that are so shockingly stupid that you can't believe you're hearing it because people will cheer him for it. This idea that if we don't have an outcome announced by 11 o'clock at night, tomorrow night, then this is a fake election.
Yeah.
And then everything I do subsequent to that is legitimate. It needs to be done. We have to make sure this is fair. The any mail-in votes don't count. We should go back and pick all the mail-in votes from the last 6 weeks and get rid of them. And there'd be people that would cheer him for that.
Absolutely.
He's this close to saying, if he hasn't said it now, the only votes that count and should be counted are ones that are done on Tuesday, November 3rd. All other votes don't count. And there are people that would say, we got to do it that way. Because he would say, that's the way I always did it. I always voted on election. I mean, he could say shit that's
when America was quote unquote great. That's what we did. We just showed up.
We only had election day on election
exactly.
day. Right. And it's not going to stand. And no, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, there are some good Republicans who are going to finally step up. I'm not counting on that.
Forget that.
I'm not counting on that.
It might happen, but we're not. Again, you can't bank on it.
But the biggest weakness of the American electoral system may end up being its biggest strength. And I say this for this reason. What Trump is saying and trying to invoke whatever power he has of persuasion or whatever presidential powers that he has, which are considerable, at this moment, stand up against I believe it's about 3,300 different counties in this country that conduct the presidential elections. So anyone that's ever said, well, why don't we just have a federal election and let the federal government run the election? We ought to be thanking our lucky stars that is not the way the country is, because then Donald Trump really would and could step in and say, no more votes are going to be counted after midnight. I just made that rule up. I just made that law up. That's Trump's law.
Right.
That's like the McConnell rule, the Schumer rule. Here's the Trump rule.
The Biden rule, all that shit.
But because, and this I do have faith in, even in counties that are largely run by Republicans, I think when it comes to actually counting the votes, 99.9% of people try to do an honest job. The people that run elections,
I agree.
The people that sit there on election day, these are honest people, and they're doing the right thing. And that is what's standing in the way between Donald Trump and tyranny and anarchy and
that's
trying
democracy.
to destroy
That's
so
it.
Yes. So we're pissed about the Electoral College. There's a lot of things to be annoyed with over this. The idea that it's only 8 states that it's terrible. But at the last moment, in the last inch of the last mile, which is election day, and then when they start to count the votes, and in states like ours, they've already counted most of the votes that have come in. I'm sure the ones that are already in, they've counted them.
Yep.
And you've seen this now probably 300 times, no matter what channel you watch or what you read, that the Midwestern states, particularly Pennsylvania, they don't start counting their ballots at all until 7:00 tomorrow night. Everything's come in. And of course, that's so idiotic. It's just, again, it's beyond discussion.
It is.
Of how stupid that
It
is.
is. Yeah, how that ever became anything.
Right. It's like all year long, you get a paycheck, but you're not allowed to look at how much money is coming in. You're not allowed to count it.
December 31st.
Until December 31st.
Oh, there it is.
It's just stupid. It's just completely dumb. It's just idiotic. But the fact that we have it dispersed all across the country in 100 counties in North Carolina, in 88 of them in Ohio. I don't know how many counties there are in Pennsylvania, probably a lot.
Yeah.
It's just about impossible to even think that you could get everybody on board with some kind of conspiracy to mess it up. I don't think that's on the table. And that's what Donald Trump doesn't understand about this country. He doesn't understand. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that's the only thing that Donald Trump doesn't understand.
Add it to the list. Any closing remarks for people to keep the faith until we're back on Wednesday?
You just said it.
That's it. I mean,
look, and obviously, if you didn't vote and I called you a name and you were an idiot, I take it back. I didn't mean it. But you should have voted before. You could have
should.
done it before.
And you had the opportunity.
You really did. And I don't expect there to be the kind of Proud Boys brandishing guns at polling places in our part of the world. I don't think that's going to happen here.
It's going to happen somewhere, though. It feels like it's going to happen somewhere.
It's probably going to happen somewhere, because the fact that they're all driving around and they think that the number of flags on the back of a pickup truck is an indicator of actual voter support across this country. I'm not buying it. I could be wrong. Hey, we could all be wrong. We could all be eating our hats tomorrow. It wouldn't be the first time.
That's for sure.
But the race has been stable all the way through. The polls have never wavered, and Donald Trump is the least popular president of your lifetime and my lifetime put together in years. We have to go back. Who knows? I hear that Millard Fillmore had terrible ratings.
Herbert Hoover, not a popular guy.
Hubert Heaver, Hubert Heaver. So I think we should keep the faith, not respond to early results that come in. They really won't mean anything this time, because but you can, if North Carolina and Florida go Biden, then you can head down to the liquor store and buy some bubbly. Short of that,
no, there's no path to victory without Florida for Donald Trump.
And if Trump grabs North Carolina but loses Florida, you can still probably go drinking.
I agree.
If he wins North Carolina and loses Florida, that sets up a little bit more of an interesting process over the next few days. But when everybody thinks something's going to happen, it often doesn't. And if everybody's bracing for some kind of street violence, I just hope that there's some cooler heads on the other side that decide that Donald Trump, in the end, will not be worth it.
He ain't worth it.
And that what I've said the last few months will turn out to be true. Hey, you've already got your fucking Supreme Court. Don't worry about it.
That's it, right? You got a lot of judges.
You don't have to worry about it. You can get rid of Trump now. Yeah, you guys did your bidding.
You guys fucked up a lot of stuff. Just be happy with that and move on, right?
Right. He's done enough damage.
Right.
It's time. The house is burned down. Insurance policy is going to be kicking in. We're going to rebuild the house here. How about that? Okay.
That's where we'll leave it.
We'll see you on Wednesday.
Stay calm.